So first of all, thank you. Thank you for your attention. Thank you for coming to Product School and for my talk. This is going to be a great presentation, and not because it's not a presentation. It's a deeply personal story about how to transition into a product role. I think there are multiple people here who are product managers and people who are in transition, but even people who are product managers and have product manager titles, some of you may believe that you're not really product managers. Like you don't do the kind of things that you think a product manager does or that you learn. So there is a whole bunch of people who are in transition. They transition from their current roles to product roles, and then within product roles to better product roles, better companies, higher titles, and everything else. And so I'll start my journey. So I graduated from USC a long time ago, and I moved to the Bay Area, and I got this job, early employee at this startup, which was started by Berkeley and MIT professors. Within a year, we got sold for $1 billion. I was a paper millionaire, and everything was great. But there's always a but. There were three things that were happening at that time. I had joined as a software engineer, and within a few months, I had moved into a product manager role, product strategy role. So technically, I was doing product management, but I was organizationally, I was still in the VP engineering org in that. And because it was such a small company and everybody knew everybody else, it wasn't a big deal. Till the company was still the company, but suddenly we got bought. And things changed. And the acquiring company said, okay, who's where? Like, what are we going to do now? And I was firmly and strictly, that had never been moved. So I was 1 year out of grad school. I was half in engineering, half in product management. That's one story. The second story is the market tanked. It was 2001. I was in a specific market called content delivery networks. In 1999, there were like 25 companies. By 2001, there were like one company, Akamai, that stood in that space. So suddenly, all jobs, every other startup had vanished. And as some of you know, and many of you may or may not be, how many of you here are on an H-1B visa? Okay, so that's the third thing. So I was on an H-1B visa, and as you know, there are some nuances of how you go around H-1B visas. You have to exit the country every few years, get stamping and stuff done. I was scheduled to go get my stamping on September 13th, 2001. And there's something that happened on September 11th, 2001 that had never happened before, probably never happens again, that had everybody thinking about all flights were canceled, everything was in a lockdown, there was massive scrutiny like never before on what's going on. So I had half product, half software role. I had a company that did excellent, but my situation was, okay, where does this person fit now? And I had this massive visa issue to resolve when everything was in lockdown. So from there, so there is hope. So one thing I can say is that you can transition. I'm sure a lot of you have transitioned in your lives in things you've done over the years. So transition into a product manager role is totally possible, totally doable. Over the years, like Brad said, I worked 12 years in product management. I was at Yahoo. I was at Adobe on Photoshop. I was at Evernote. And right now, I am co-founder of a machine learning startup with a few other people. So that's sort of my story. So when you think, and I'm going to talk about this transition, and over the years, I've spoken to a lot of people, and people have come to me, and I'm passionate about it because it's deeply personal to me. I was doing sales before I did product management. I was doing well in sales. I was a technical sales engineer for a software, for a storage company, and I was meeting my quotas. I was doing well. But I had this passion, like I wanted to be a product manager. I just loved this concept that I will be CEO, that I will do these things. And I was just not satisfied doing well in sales, which is, I think, most of you here. Everybody here who aspires to be a product role wants to be this CEO, this mini CEO. But there is a path to get there. So let's talk about, oops, sorry, there is a build here. One sec. So when you think of product manager roles, there are three types of roles. One is the enterprise PM. This is a PM where you are responsible for infrastructure. You're responsible for implementation of huge initiatives. Think of Cisco, Intuit, Oracle, where there are these massive infrastructure things going on. You need to be very technical. But the one good thing is that there is a support structure in place. You have program managers and architects and engineers and other product managers. You have a title. In some companies like Facebook, they call it the TPM, the technical product manager role. It's one of the easiest if you're a technical person. If you're a technical person and show affinity towards business-mindedness, then a technical PM role is the way for you to get in. So, one of the things that people come and ask me is like, I have this background, but I want to apply to Amazon or Google. They don't apply to me. So my answer there is like, if you were trained as a dermatologist and you wanted to become a heart surgeon and you applied, chances are that you won't get in. So the whole trick is to have adjacent careers and then use relationships and move into a career that you want. So that's sort of, if you're in an engineering background, that's the best thing for you because it also mitigates some of your risk. The second thing is when people say, I want to be a product manager, this is what they're talking about. Consumer PM at Google. Newsfeed PM at Facebook, which is where you are understanding customer value, you run all aspects of the team, you're at Dropbox or somewhere else. And when they think of this CEO role, you're the mini CEO, what they don't tell you is Mark Zuckerberg is the product manager for Newsfeed. Newsfeed, if it's not working and you have data, ultimate arbiter is the CEO of that company, no matter how big that company is. So it's very few people who get funding, defunding opportunities. You could be a product manager in a product team, like I was at Adobe. We have 15 people in the Creative Cloud business, and I was on Photoshop and other things. But at no point could I go and tell my VP that, oh, I'm responsible for this modal, and I've decided to cancel it. Like, that's not an option that you have. So you have to recognize that, those are challenges that exist. And finally, once you graduate from here, you become a product strategy, go-to-market leader, typical titles like a director, VP, chief product officer, depending on the size of the company. You are very intimately involved with the competitive landscape. You are heavy on customer interaction, launches, as well as you are responsible for hiring. I think some of those other speakers have talked about, how do you hire? And you get basically, you basically get paid for making the right hiring choices. Now, in my opinion, the number one thing, if you're technical, is enterprise PM. Get an infrastructure, IOPS role at any big company, become a product manager. Have that title, because the title changes perception. If you have a title that is business analyst, project manager, something else, you might think you know everything. You might have come to product school, but your title is not there. And because product manager is a leadership role, perception matters, right? Second thing is consumer PM. Now, consumer PM is the hardest to get to because B2C is very risky when you're doing that. And if you don't have a technical background, maybe you're a sales leader or a customer success leader, you have to find the right culture fit to get into a consumer PM role. And I would say that every individual situation is different of the transition that you're trying to make. So I'm more than happy because I said, I have deeply lived this life to talk to anybody who has these things, and we can craft a strategy for you on how to get there. And finally, once you graduate and you do well, you may realize that you don't do these things well. You can't take in that much data, deal with that much ambiguity. To do this, you are a product strategy VP type person. So that being said, let me talk about a few of the challenges that will happen. So now you think that you're very unhappy in your job, you want a transition PM role, and things will be good. So the first thing that will happen in a product role is you'll have attacks from engineering. Right now you may be an engineer, and a typical attack might be you've been working with your team, you have this product, 3 months in, a director of engineering who was not involved, had other priorities, will walk into a meeting and tell you, I don't understand why we're doing this. So there goes your credibility. People will constantly come and tell you, I don't understand the requirements. They're not clear. And that will create this loop where you keep saying, Like, I have written everything down. Here are the mocks, here are things. And people say, I don't understand. One lead engineer will say, I don't understand why we're doing this. What are we doing? And that perception lingers. People start to believe that, well, this person is not clear about what they're trying to do. So attacks from engineering, the same team that you were part of, now because you're a product, they will test you. And not consciously, subconsciously. They're like, okay, you're a product, you're supposed to know everything. Now tell me this, I don't understand. So it becomes your job to understand, make them understand. This thing will lead into frowns from leadership. This director, senior director, your boss will hear these things and they'll say, this person doesn't know how to write emails. There will be, your clarity of communication will be challenged. What you thought you were always good at, you presented well, you wrote emails well, you'll get feedback like, I don't think you write good emails, or you are not good at convincing people in large groups. Feedback that I have got from my manager saying, if there are 10 people in the room, you don't do a good job of convincing them. And that will be, okay, there is no clarity. You might be told, I was told to go to Stanford and take a class on communication because I sucked so much at communication, which I did. And interpersonal skills. Somebody might say you like EQ. Yeah, you're smart, but you don't understand people, which may be true. So those things will crop up. Then the final thing which you will not even understand is happening is misalignment. Misalignment with what? Misalignment with leadership objectives. And there are some signals that you will find, like if your direct boss blows off meetings, your one-on-ones with you, if you don't get tractions for items you've escalated, there are simple signs. If you don't get resources, that's a definite sign that you don't have that is not high on the priority. But because things change so dynamically, most bosses and leaders will never communicate to you that this has changed. Your job actually has changed. In 6 months, you will not have this team, but for the time being, it's too complicated for me to explain all this, so you keep doing what you're doing. And you keep feeling like you're doing a great job, and people are not giving you support. But you are misaligned. And it's your job to find this out. The way I found this out, I was on this team at Adobe. I had a 35-person team, largest team in the group of 250 people, 1 p.m. I go to New York for a customer presentation. My sales team tells me, your product is not on my go-to-market slide deck. We don't have pricing for your product. I said, how is that possible? Like, this is the biggest product. Like, I just was in California, and they said, no, we've never received pricing. And I was you are so gung-ho about your own project that you miss these signals. You think, no, I have a big team, I have so many things to do. But if the salespeople don't have pricing for your product, which means it's not on sales priority, which means it's not on your leadership's priority. But you are keeping on going because somebody somewhere subconsciously had made a decision. This guy lacks clarity. In 6 months, I'm going to replace him. Let him spin his wheels for a while. And that happens in big companies. There are too many priorities. Nobody's devious or conniving, but it's just the nature of business. So it's your job to understand and read these signals and not be so full of yourself, like I'm product manager for the first time. Okay, I'm going to do this. Process. You think it's not your job. You think there are program managers and other things. They will work. It won't. Everything will break down to the extent that in one group I was, stand-ups broke down. Like people could not agree on how long and what should be discussed in a stand-up, and that conversation went on for 6 weeks. What is your job to, because that is again your thing, like how are people communicating? And that will break down. It's your job to continue to put all these things together. And finally, the matrix. What's the matrix? If you're running a big initiative in a large company, you have peer influence, you have buy-in that you need from peers, from your leadership. And that matrix is so frustrating for a lot of people because they're not trained and they don't expect that something that is so obvious will get stuck and will not get prioritized and will not happen. So those are all the things that you will suddenly start to see once you become a product manager. Before that, it's not your job. You come in, you do something, you get out. You're an engineer. You're good at your job. So that being said, let's transition into how to transition. number one thing, no matter what you're doing, whether you're a product manager or mostly aspiring product managers, be prepared. So being prepared has two parts. One part is the smallest things you can do, which is don't be late to meetings. Ask thoughtful questions. So I had this QA person in my Adobe India team. We would generally get together at night. There were 15, 20 people on a call, but she would always, she would say something and it would make sense. And then she would say something else and then it would make, more sense. And amongst these 15, 20 people that I never met, that I would always, she consistently was prepared. She consistently asked thoughtful questions that made me revise my requirements. A year later, when I was asked, should we promote this person? I said, most definitely yes. Because she was prepared, she was thoughtful, she was a QA engineer, had nothing to do with me. But I remembered that she added value. There was another person who was product owner in India. He came here, and he's like, you're not doing your job well. He came in, first meeting, he's like, you should be more in front of customers. I'm like, thank you very much. So obviously, you're in the answer right there. Second thing is demonstrate leadership. No matter what function you're doing, customer success, project manager, whatever else, in a big company, a small company, you want to be somebody who's the domain expert of that thing. That particular thing that you are given. Another example, I had a customer success person. She had a tumultuous personal life, gone through a divorce and stuff, but really good with customer success. Really good with knowing her customers, doing her tickets, knowing everything. So when the time came, when she said, I want to transition to product, the whole organization basically said, yeah, you're a high-performing person. You've always had affinity to product. We'll give you a shot. Third thing is, this is something that a lot of people miss, is transfer. What I mean is, you might be great, you might be prepared, you might get you have great buy-in from your leadership, but you are in a group that is not growing. You are in a situation where leadership is leaving. You are in maintenance mode, and you feel very strong, like I'm good at this, Intel microprocessor, blah, 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 and I am, I have been promised by my leadership. But it's not, the leadership can't do anything because the group is not growing. So one of the toughest things you have to realize and recognize is that you should transfer to a fast-growing part of the business. And this transfer process is not easy. It's messy because it's the usual things, right? Where do I find a job? How do I tell my manager? Will my manager agree? If my manager doesn't agree, where do I land? But to me, that whole process is your best part into getting a product role versus saying, I'm just going to quit this company and go somewhere else. Because if you don't have a title that is product manager, it is really hard for you, like my example of dermatologist to heart surgeon. No other person will perceive you that way. So this messy process of transfer, you have to recognize, you have to give up, and you say, okay, I'll take 6 months of a hit because I reached here, and now I'm going to restart another group, build another relationship. So that is important for if you're doing well. If you're not prepared and you don't have a perception in your current group where people think you're a subject matter expert, you definitely want to transfer. You want to transfer, establish yourself as that person, and then build relationships. Now, building relationships is not about, first, you should not build a relationship with a person who's a leaf node. If a person has no hiring authority, then it really doesn't matter whether you have a good relationship or not, unless they get into that position. And in this, it's not enough. Like, I had a person who would, take me to lunch. He called me to his son's birthday or something, give me a gift, my son a gift and all that. But at one point, I asked him, I had an estimation exercise, and I said, so-and-so, here's an estimation exercise. You want to do it? He's like, no, I'm busy this week, and I'll maybe get on to it next week. So people you're trying to build a relationship with will sometimes test you by giving you an casual task. But if you don't see that opportunity and if you don't give respect, then I am not convinced that you're serious. I am not convinced that you will add value, like you will, you are doing something for me. Before you take, you give before you take. So building a relationship is not about following somebody and liking every LinkedIn post that they do. It's like when they give you an opportunity, first you ask for the opportunity to a person who has something to give you, and when they give you the opportunity, you actually take it seriously. You take it like it's your job, not something that was casually given to you. Finally, presentation. It's a leadership situation. You want to come across, you have to create that perception that you are in. So in some cases, you may hate your manager, you may hate your company, you may say this is like the most useless strategic direction. Get out of that company in that situation. Because nobody wants to make you a product manager if you're complaining, if you're disagreeing with anything. First of all, you don't want to be in the product manager for a company that you think is not headed in the right direction. Plus, you have to be sure that everybody understands that you are unhappy, and therefore you should not be given a leadership position in that company. So you have to care about that job, that position, that company, that strategic direction, that executive team. Otherwise, it's really hard for you to say, I'm such a superstar that even though I hate you guys, I'll still make you successful. That's pretty hard to do. So to summarize, be prepared. Starts, today, it starts with the smallest things. Demonstrate leadership in whichever role you have. Transfer out to wherever you should be, your passion lies. And this is where when people talk about you should be passionate about what you're trying to do, this comes in. Like, unless you're passionate, unless you believe in something, this is also preparation. Like, if you want to be a product job, you want to do dog walking or WAG, you have to have, use that product. I think Helen said that yesterday. And then relationships. You have to build, and all of this takes time. It'll take you 1.5, 2 years. And then presentation. Work on how people talk. Sometimes you might think you should get your manager's position. Like, you're so much smarter than he is or she is. But there are some soft skills, like maybe he just listens or she just listens. And that is a very important attribute in leadership. And you might think that this person just listens, he doesn't do anything. But that is his job, to listen. That's why he's there or she's there. So lastly, I'll say something about the work visa. It's a real challenge. I've gone through it myself. I'm sure lots of people connect with me offline if you want to do. But I would say one learning is don't be hard on yourself. It's a grind. And don't feel, just don't be hard about yourself on this. It just takes time. It's the way, it's your journey. It's very philosophical, but this is what it is. You can't do something about it till you get your I-140. That's simply the... one of the things, this is actually not my slide. It is one of the students who made this slide in the past cohort that I was instructor at. A lot of people in transition feel lonely. They feel like nobody understands their specific situation. It is so unique, which it is. And product school, I would encourage you to explore and become part of it, whichever one you choose to. Is made to get you in connection with a lot of people who are like-minded, where you learn some of the concepts and also create this community where you're not lonely as much as you were before. I'll leave you with this quote from Deep Nishar, who's, if you guys don't know, you should look him up. He was the SVP of product at LinkedIn, which is a great product manager, has the brain of an engineer, the heart of a designer, and a speech of a diplomat. Thank you very much.